By fans, for fans, the Hog Style. And now, here's your host, Sean Conti.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Hogsty, DC's unofficial leading source for all things Redskins and the NFL. People, in this podcasting life, you often find yourself repeating yourself ad nauseum, and only a few times a year does a story break with big implications for your team. Well, we are excited because tonight's definitely one of those days with the news that Alex Smith has been traded to the Redskins and Kirk Cousins will hit the open market. The guys are here. That's Alex Zeese and Steve Thomas. Let's do this, guys. How you doing?
I'm doing good today. Steve woke me up in the middle of the night.
I did?
I went to bed at like 7. I got no sleep the night before, so I fell asleep super early. Then Steve
So in
called
the
me
middle
at
of the
like 9:45.
Frantically asking how to post a Twitter thing on our website.
Right. I'm lying in bed, and he's like, "How do I post this from Twitter?" There. Copy, paste.
Because I'm technologically impaired, you see, and so I have to call Alex for all these things, and I'm an hour behind him, and I just assumed he was up. So
Yeah, and he's asleep at 7:30.
I usually am up that late. But
it didn't even occur to me not to
got
call
2 hours of sleep the night before.
It didn't even occur to me not to call you, and I didn't know until this moment that you were actually asleep.
Yeah, there you go.
He just wanted to shame you publicly on the show, Steve.
I don't care. I'm going to wake you up. I have no shame at all.
It was not a big deal.
It's got to get posted one way or the other.
Yeah, it did.
But
Right.
But hey, before we get into that, hey Steve, pop
Yes.
quiz. What's the best online retailer for live tickets nationwide?
I do believe it's ticketclub.com. Sean, why don't you tell us about it?
Oh my God, you're so right, folks. It's not too late to pick up your tickets to the Super Bowl. Here's how you're going to do it. First, you're going to go to thehogsty.com. And after you browse our awesome site for 20 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, whatever you want to do, you're going to click on over to Ticket Club from the top of the page. And from there, your journey awaits. Ticketclub.com is the best way to see live entertainment. And when you get there from the Hogsty's website, you help a little operation like us so we can keep bringing you all the hot takes. So, with that out of the way and a quick shout out to ticketclub.com, our friends, let's talk the big news. Guys, Alex Smith, the news dropped yesterday. Want to just take like a quick snap reaction to this?
Quick snap reaction?
Yeah.
My quick snap reaction is I was pretty darn happy about it.
Wow,
That was my quick
okay.
reaction. If you want me to
I think-
expand, I will, but that was my snap.
Oh.
That was my snap thought.
I certainly
Yeah.
do want to get into the nitty-gritty details. Just what was the first thing you thought when you saw it, Alex?
The first thing I thought was I'm going back to bed, but the second thing I thought,
Because I think we just learned that
Was-
I was the one that broke the news to Alex.
That's true.
And the second thing I thought was, well, that ends that. And,
a fitting end to that.
That's kind of just where I was. I was like, that
Yeah.
it's closure. You pretty definitively closed the book on Kirk and opened the next page.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I think
that's kind of where I was.
And I think no matter how you feel about Alex Smith as a player, I think everybody was surprised. I don't think this was necessarily one that was on everybody's radar as a
No, I didn't.
possibility.
There were no rumors about this up until the night of, from what I've been hearing.
Well, I'll just tell
Yeah,
you how
just
I learned about this.
shell
Is
shock.
that I learned about this from Jamal, who is not with us tonight. Jamal texted us and said something like Alex Smith traded, and I was thinking, what are you talking about? Alex Smith
He's
did not
trolling.
get
He has to
traded
be.
during the State of the Union address. That didn't happen.
That was your rationale?
Yeah. It was just so out of left field, because we've talked about Alex Smith on this show this season about how
Right.
he would be a good fit in Jay Gruden's offense, but I never thought it would happen on the Tuesday before the Super Bowl. It was
No. Well, and the timing really is kind of unusual because you would think the NFL would almost want to put the kibosh on anything like this coming out during Super Bowl week. I know in Major League Baseball there's that unwritten rule that you don't announce something like this during the World
You
Series.
remember when they violated that? You remember this story?
Yeah, for A-Rod.
Yeah, and they criticized, and
Yeah.
the commissioner kind of blew up at A-Rod over it.
Yeah. Well, was that him re-signing with the Yankees or something, or was it him getting moved? I don't
No,
remember.
I think it
but
was
something-
re-signing with the Yankees, and they announced it in the middle of Game 1 of the World Series. I think it was.
Right. And
Sort of a faux pas to do that in any sport
Yes,
is what you're saying.
it's
Yeah.
not a crime, but it is a faux pas.
Yeah, it's an etiquette
and so I'm
violation.
surprised this isn't kind of looked at as a faux pas to do a trade
Well,
like this week.
I mean, if you listened to the It's Just Business show, you would have learned that the Super Bowl really doesn't get ramped up until Wednesday. Tuesday
True.
is the media
Yeah.
day for the teams, but the Super Bowl stuff doesn't really start till Wednesday, and so they actually kind of came in under the wire. a little bit.
Yeah, well, and Kirk had been doing a whole day on Radio Row that day.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys picked up on that, but he talked to every major radio station that morning.
Had no idea.
And then that night, all their stuff is useless.
Oh yeah, by the way, you're not a Redskin
love that.
anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's so many ways to take this, but here's kind of the way I wanted to open it up was asking you, Steve, because with all of your contract analysis that you've done with Kirk Cousins, we now know the terms here with Smith. What do you think? How much do you think is being saved here in this maneuver? Is this a big money saver for the Redskins?
It's a little bit hard to get exact because we don't know the guarantees. Let me just tell you the parameters here for those of you out there. First of all, Smith is in the last year of his deal that was signed in Kansas City, and so his cap hit, and there was guaranteed money in Kansas City, and I'm not going to bore you with all that, but the bottom line is the cap hit this year for the Redskins is going to be $17 million. Now, going forward, he signed a 4-year extension, which reportedly, according to Ian Rappaport and Chris Mortensen, and I think Schefter had it too, maybe, the total package for the next 4 years is $94 million. Now, there is 71 million guaranteed in some way, shape, or fashion. We don't know exactly what that is. There was a rumor at one point that the guarantee was only for injury, which makes a gigantic difference in terms of cap hit and everything.
Right.
We don't know this. We don't know. But if you add all that together, that comes out to 5 years, 118 million, which is a little bit under the amount I said we should give Kirk last year. And so what we're getting
by about what, 10 million?
Yeah,
or so?
about 10 million. It's about 10 million less of total package for a 5-year deal. And so if you want to take a wag at it without knowing the guarantee structure, we're probably saving $5-6 million a year.
Yeah,
between Alex and between Smith and Cousins.
Yeah. Now and because we don't have the exact numbers, this is all kind of still up in the air. We should say that. Because I've heard people going back and forth, and when I say people, I mean real reporters who study this stuff.
Not Twitter
and,
yahoos.
Not Twitter yahoos, like legit guys. Not 100% sure if it's a 4-year extension or if it's a 4-year deal that starts this year. I've heard that go back and forth.
Okay.
And we don't know if there's an out year. We know Bruce loves out years.
Let me just tell you that. Let me stop you right there, because there's no way this contract is a $94 million contract and it's it's 4 years total. That just isn't going to happen because the numbers would be the annual base would be huge, the salary cap would be huge. I would find it very difficult to believe that it's not anything but a 4-year extension after 2018 if the $94 million is right. Otherwise, it's a gigantic,
But I don't even know if this year is included in that 94 number.
Yeah, I mean, my guess is that it's basically a 5-year deal that takes Smith out to essentially the end of his career. I would be very, very surprised if the Redskins could not get out of this in 2020 at least.
Yeah.
Year 3.
That's what I was thinking, probably a 2 or 3 year out kind of thing.
And when you say out, that means we get to the point where the dead money, as a result of whatever signing bonus he got, is less than his cap hit, which means he could be cut. So that would be my guess.
And there's also roster bonuses that they can use where they add that to the guaranteed when they talk about the stuff. It's very confusing.
Yeah, we don't want to get into all those minor details.
But the point, Steve, that you're making is that this is probably not a massive money-saving maneuver.
It saves a few $1 million a year.
Alex.
It saves a few. I don't know. You call it what you want. I mean, call it good, call it bad, call it a lot, call it a little. It saves a few $1 million a year. It is.
Can you? And I know you said you didn't want to bore us with the details of Kansas City's situation, but can you at least speak a little bit to who came out on top of this transaction?
I think it depends completely on two things to me. I think Kendall Fuller is irrelevant. We're going to get to Kendall Fuller. I have a whole big rant about Kendall Fuller. But I think it depends on, number one, are we getting 2017 Alex Smith for at least 3 years? If we do that, I think this is a win. No matter what else happens, no matter the money, no matter anything, if we get 2017 Alex Smith, it's a win because 2017 Alex Smith was better than Cousins. He was better than almost everybody but three or four quarterbacks. He had almost a quarterback rating of almost 105, 67% completion percentage, threw only a handful of interceptions. And so if we get that guy, it's a win. And the other thing I think that matters is, again, like I just said, the structure of the guarantees. If we're
Right.
giving him a ton of guaranteed money, and it takes, and when we've got huge dead money in like year 4, that's a problem. When he's getting older, I think if we get 3 years of this most recent Alex Smith out of him, I think we're doing awesome.
Right. And it also, if we have like one big cap hit year, like you were saying, like next year or something, where it makes it manageable for this year and the year after,
Right.
we're gonna figure all that stuff out probably when the contract gets released May 14th or May 15th, somewhere around there.
Well, the contract doesn't get released at all. I mean, there'll be the normal SPO track, and those guys will get a hold of it. They don't release a contract.
Well, that's what I mean by
Yeah,
released.
yeah.
It gets leaked to one of those sites, and then we'll know how good the deal is. But I'm with you. I think if we can get 2-3 good years out of him, it buys you time to still find a quarterback, because where we're picking this year, getting one of these good quarterbacks in this draft was probably unlikely.
Yeah.
Right.
So, it buys you time for that. It buys you time to maybe draft a kid later and groom him. So, I think those things, from a team building standpoint, you're kind of settling the position for a couple years, and that's key.
I think if you are listening to this and you've been paying attention to this trade and you're somewhat distraught because Smith is 33 and he's going to be 34, and you go, oh my God, we traded for an old game manager, I think you need to probably watch Alex Smith of the past couple of years again. He is a dramatically different quarterback now than he was in the early days in San Francisco. I would totally agree with you if we traded for that guy. Alex Smith wasn't a very good quarterback. But what I saw of Alex Smith last year was he was really starting to sling it around the field a little bit in the ways that he hadn't done before. Let me just throw some numbers at you guys. As a comparison, Kirk Cousins last year, 64.3% completions, 4,093 yards, 27 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. Quarterback rating 93.9. Alex Smith, on the other hand, 67.5% completion, 4,042 yards, so a few left, 50 less yards, 26 touchdowns and only 5 interceptions, a quarterback rating of 104.7.
Right.
Statistically, he was a better quarterback than Cousins last year.
But not by a whole bunch.
No,
they're very close.
Yeah, they're similar guys, but my point is he outperformed Cousins. And this is
Fair
not
enough,
a case
with a
of
better
we're
team
getting-
around him, and
we'll
plenty
get to that. But I mean,
plenty of factors.
Yeah, there's plenty of factors. But I don't think what we're gonna see is some like lesser, older version of Kirk Cousins. I don't think, and I think Alex Smith is.
I don't know
aged.
anyone that's saying that though.
I've seen a
Are
solid.
you hearing
I've
people
seen
say
that.
that?
I had to pay
Really?
close attention to Twitter today because of all this, and there's a zillion people out there that believe that.
Oh, that's unbelievable to me. Those people
Yeah.
aren't paying attention. And
No,
they just
they're
don't. They haven't watched Alex Smith.
I mean, I think there are plenty of parallels between the two. I mean, they are
Absolutely.
both very cerebral quarterbacks. They're very. I hate to say they're prone to the check down, but they know when to just dump the ball off and go to the next play. Like, they both do that. That's a very similar aspect of both their games.
Yeah.
Can we just
And
take it?
There's nothing
from-
wrong with that,
Take it from this: upgrade or downgrade. Forget the contract. Forget Kendall Fuller. Forget every other factor to it. Just speaking of the quarterback position, is this an upgrade or a downgrade?
For 2018, I think it's an upgrade.
Yeah,
I agree.
For
I'm prone to
18,
agree.
I would say it's a slight upgrade. For 19-20, who knows? Because you're talking about a 35-year-old.
Yeah, I mean, although to his credit, he's shown no signs of aging whatsoever. He's in great shape. He's a very cerebral quarterback. Like you said, he knows his strengths, he knows his weaknesses, he knows his game. I think he's going to age pretty well. It doesn't appear to me that he's about to fall off a cliff. I don't think, and yes, I mean, history's not on our side with this because we traded, if you guys remember, we traded for another quarterback with Andy Reid a few years ago, and it totally blew up in our face. I don't think this is Donovan.
McNabb was 35 when we traded.
And
for him.
McNabb sucked, okay?
Yeah,
McNabb was a runner, and he had his strengths, but, McNabb was a shell of himself. Alex Smith has actually gotten better. So I don't think we're seeing that, and I don't think we're seeing a guy who's in a steady decline. I think that the Chiefs just believe in Patrick Mahomes, and so they're going to go with him.
Yeah.
First-round pick. And
And
Well,
they had
drafted
one
him in the first round, didn't
yeah,
they?
they did.
Yeah, and they had one good game with him. His small sampling was positive, so it makes sense for them to do it. I think I have heard this described as essentially a lateral move, and I think it is a slight upgrade because I look at this guy as a less sloppy Kirk Cousins, frankly. But most of all, it seems like a lateral move, and it's virtually the same thing. You got a guy who can do it with a good team around him.
I think he's a little bit more fearless than Cousins too. I mean, I think he's gonna. I know some people don't think he's gonna throw in the tight as windows as Cousins, but frankly, I think Smith may be more willing to do some of those.
I think he'll be
down.
more willing to throw the deep ball. Than
Yeah,
Cousins.
he'll be, and I think he'll be more accurate than Cousins because we know that's not really Cousins' strength. And so, from that respect, I think it's an upgrade. And I think Smith is a better runner. He moves better than Cousins. He can run a little bit.
Better instincts with running. Yeah.
Yeah.
One on that though. One point I've heard a couple people make, and I, because I've seen Alex Smith as much as any Redskins fan has seen Alex Smith, and
Right.
it's not like I've watched every Chiefs game, but somebody pointed out to me, or pointed out online at least, that Smith is really better in rollout plays. That's where he's always at his best. And Gruden traditionally likes a straight drop back kind of quarterback. So there's going to have to be some adjustment to Jay's game planning.
I mean, Cousins rolled out sometimes. It wasn't like we never did it.
Yeah, it's not like we never did, but I think that Jay's going to have to adjust his game plan no matter what. No matter who the quarterback is, Jay adjusts to the quarterback a little bit here and there. So I'm not too worried about that.
I just think that Cousins is such a naturally cautious and conservative guy that it kind of bleeds over into his play. And I'm not criticizing him. He is who he is, and he's a great guy, and, we had good years with him here. But I think he's just so naturally cautious, and I think he is the type of guy who's going to not throw a ball because he's afraid it's going to be intercepted. He's afraid it's going to be incomplete. I think Alex Smith is less fearful of that, even though he had a lot less interceptions. Let's do a real quick, since I have it up here. We'll do career numbers for Smith. On a career, now 2017 was his best year. Remember that. I mean, on a career, he's a 62.4% passer, 183 touchdowns, interceptions 96, so that's good. Career quarterback rating 87.4. A lot of that is born from the early years, when it wasn't quite as good. He's
He's passed for who he was playing around back then.
Yeah, it was a horrible 49ers team. Yeah, and interestingly, the other time he got traded from the Niners to the Chiefs, he also had a career year. So that's like his curse: play well and you're gone. But he's at 31,888 yards in his since he was drafted in 2005. So that is Alex Smith in a nutshell.
In a nutshell.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually kind of curious to hear about that because this is obviously a guy that's flown probably under the radar for most football fans. I've followed him much more in recent years than I have throughout his time in San Francisco.
I feel like he flew off the radar more than anything. When he came out, remember, he was the number one pick.
And he underperformed.
Really excited about him.
And he underperformed.
Yeah, quickly
drastically.
faded, though.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Quickly faded. I don't know. Career numbers aside and all of that context aside, I still feel like this is he's going to be solid for this team. If you can find receiving weapons for him and fix some of the other obvious holes on offense, this is a guy who can make it happen and can get it done. I really do believe that.
That is the big key, isn't it? Is now you have
he's going to have the same problems as Kirk, I guess is what I'm saying. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but he's going to have the exact same problems if the team stays the way it is right now.
They have to get a running game. That's what you're really ultimately. You have to get a running game. You have to get a speedy deep ball receiver. And then you have to hope that Doxson, or if they re-sign Pryor or somebody else, is going to develop into the guy who can be the number one receiver, who's going to get the first down, who's going to be able to run the square in right at the linebacker and get those critical 8 yards. We need that guy, and I don't know if we have it, and we darn sure don't have another Deshaun Jackson. So they're going to have to get that, and Alex Smith isn't going to have Kareem Hunt there either, who is one of the best running backs in the league. This is why, I mean, everybody, I've seen a lot of fans out there who are just begging for defense in the draft, and I hear you, but they desperately need a running back, a big-time running back, desperately.
There are fundamental offensive problems still, and all of this acquisition of Smith will be for naught, Steve, exactly, if you don't shore up the offense. Now, I would just say in terms of getting that receiver, a lot of people are saying Denver for Kirk Cousins, at which point Denver might have to offload some weapons. We might want to look there. I mean, that would be hilarious, but it would also solve a big problem. So I'm just saying, I think we need to keep our eyes on places like that or wherever Kirk goes, because they're going to probably offload to free up some room. We need to scoop up some weapons somewhere.
There's that. I mean, who's the guy Miami that is
Landry.
getting released.
Landry?
Yeah. He's the big name that everyone seems to want to go after now.
Jarvis
So-
Landry's one. What's his name? Allen Robinson. I mean, there's another
Yeah,
one.
Allen Robinson,
I mean, the
yep.
guy, they were talking about Demaryius Thomas in Denver to make room for Cousins, but I can't believe that they would bring Cousins in and cut the receiver to make room for the quarterback. That's just illogical.
Yeah, for that team, man.
Find
yeah.
another way. If I was Denver, I certainly wouldn't get rid of the weapons.
I'm starting to find Denver more and more illogical as John Elway keeps on going. So I don't know. Maybe there is something to it.
Yeah.
Well, this is an interesting thing that we just brought up. So why don't we talk a little bit about Kendall Fuller and what was being given up to bring quarterbacks in? Because that's the entire other piece of this story that I think affects how you're going to view it. How much value did you see in Kendall Fuller, and how much of a loss is that to this team?
Go first, Alex.
There is value there. I'm not one of these people who thinks he was going to be the next Champ Bailey. And I actually had that conversation with a guy today who said, we just lost Champ Bailey for an aging corner. And he's not that. No, he could be a potential number one corner, probably will be. But I don't see a Champ Bailey All-Star Hall of Fame kind of cornerback there. I see a good guy who will probably have a decent career. But we've done a good job in the last few years finding those kind of guys. In the last 4 drafts, we got Rashad Breeland, Kendall Fuller, and Fabian Moreau, who are all supposedly going to be number one cornerbacks.
Right.
And we saw it with Breeland, started to see it with Fuller, didn't really get a chance to see Moreau because he was buried on the depth chart.
And he was injured,
too
too.
Worried, and he was injured. I'm not too worried about it. Like we'll find another guy. Elite corners don't grow on trees, but good corners can be found every draft.
Listen, I mean, first of all, the Redskins draft a ton of corners historically. We went over this in my draft analysis several months ago.
I don't remember the last year we didn't draft a couple.
Yeah, I mean, it was published back in Outlet this past offseason, and we drafted a ton of corners. The fan base has absolutely lost their minds. You people out there have the marbles are rolling out of your head if you think that this Kendall Fuller thing makes this trade a horrible trade, and oh my God, when did Kendall Fuller become Darryl Green? Somebody out there tell me when Kendall Fuller put on number 28 and now runs a 4.140. Yes, last year at this time, we were talking about running Kendall Fuller out of town because he was so awful as a rookie. And yes, he played well as a second-year player. Yes, he improved a lot. Yes, Bleacher Report said he was the number one corner or a slot corner in the NFL for whatever.
Which, by the way, how many times did you see that retweeted?
Well, and when it's convenient for people, you always bash on Bleacher Report. Now that it says something positive, you go with it. But point is, we have. You're exactly right. We've brought in a ton of corners. We've done a ton of corners. Fabian Moreau was a big-time player who dropped in the draft because of an injury. I promise you, the Redskins will be fine. If there was one spot where we could afford on the defense where we could afford to lose a little depth, it's at corner.
Yeah,
I mean, maybe
that's
with
fair.
this, we do also start talking Breeland about coming back again. I don't know. He still probably wants too much money, but it's not like there are no options.
Why don't we just
There are gonna be
franchise
plenty
tag
of corners.
Breeland for 3 years in a row? Keep him in DC.
Yeah,
It would be
that's
cheaper than doing it with Kirk.
Yeah, you're right. I don't know. To play devil's advocate a little bit, I mean, it seemed like some of the certain players on the team had really strong reactions to it. I agree that Twitter kind of went insane as Twitter
It definitely sounds like he was a good locker room presence. I mean, if you
the
look
team was behind him, exactly.
Right.
And
that's,
like you said,
that does suck to lose a guy like that.
Talking
but
about
quarterbacks
DJ
are more important.
Swearinger, right? I mean, and listen, DJ is an emotional
on.
dude, I mean, he always has been.
Granted.
And he was defending his guy. Kendall Fuller's his guy, secondary guy. I don't blame him for mouthing off a little bit. I think people ought to suspend. I think people ought to go with the Tony Dungy rule of, don't press send sometimes, but.
Yeah.
I think people, I would just to play devil's advocate, I think people are looking at it from the perspective of if you're giving up an ascending youthful player that had a big impact and graded out very well league-wide for a rapidly aging guy kind of at the tail, in the last third of his career that really essentially is not a massive improvement over what you had before, either in contract value or in playing ability. So I think that's the way they're looking at it. It's not that he's such a great corner, Steve. It's just that it's just a funny move. I think people are looking at when you trade youth for age in a lateral, scale of ability.
But
So-
you got to take the positions into account, and a C+ quarterback, and I don't. Alex Smith is better than that, but a C+ quarterback is more valuable than a B/A level corner because it's such an important position
Fair
on
enough.
the offense. Whereas corners you can replace.
And that
Carry
and
5 of them.
that and quarterbacks are so hard to find. This
Yeah.
franchise of any franchise knows how hard it is to find a quarterback. Us and the
Sure.
Cleveland Browns are the two that have been searching for quarterbacks since Moses was
The last
a
20
child.
years,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. We can find another corner. I promise you, we can find another corner. I think that if you have a chance to get a guy who last year was like an A- at least level quarterback.
Right.
You grab him, and Sean, you said he's rapidly aging. He's not rapidly aging.
Rapidly aging was, as soon as that came out of my mouth, it sounded stupid. You can't rapidly age. You age at the pace that everyone ages.
Well, I've been
but
watching
you know
a
what
lot
I
of Star
mean.
Trek. They do that a lot, the rapid aging as a plot device.
Yeah, fair enough. Maybe that's what I meant. No, you know what I mean. he's on the last, third of
we
his career.
understand. He's
33%.
34.
Essentially. Yeah,
He's an old quarterback.
exactly.
He's not that old a quarterback, though. I have to dispute this because in today's NFL, yes, in 15 years ago, that's an old quarterback. But there are quarterbacks who are playing in their late 30s now. How old is
I
Drew Brees?
wonder how many are actively playing right now,
Tom
past
Brady's
34.
40. Drew Brees is like 38.
Those are the big examples, though.
Yeah, but
Roethlisberger.
Alex Smith is only half a level behind that. He's a good quarterback,
Yeah.
and he always
No, you're
has
right.
been.
You're right. No, I'm not. Look,
I just don't think
I'm
we've
just
seen
saying
signs of him aging. That's all. I mean,
No, we haven't. And he's been healthy most of his
Yeah.
career.
Absolutely. I'm just trying to
yeah.
explain that strong reaction people are having to losing Kendall
And
Fuller.
I
'Cause
get it.
You're right.
And
He's not
listen,
a world
I
beater.
had the strong reaction to us saying we're getting rid of Breland when they said that.
we don't know if we are getting rid of Bugillen. They just didn't negotiate. I mean, he
Well-
may be back. Who knows?
Yeah,
possible.
I mean, that's the rumor though, is that they're moving on from him.
But let's think about
And-
this, though, just for a minute. Let's assume Breland's gone and Fuller is gone. Is it the end of the world? I mean, we've got Norman. We've got Dunbar, who they just re-signed. They've got Fabian
Right.
Monroe, who's the rookie, who, by all accounts, is an outstanding player. And who I'm missing? Who am I missing? I'm missing somebody else. But point is, they've got 3.
Fish Smithson.
Well,
is
he's
who
a
you're missing,
he's
and
a safety. Smithson is not a corner, but
he's kind of played everything.
Yeah, but
he's
they're
not
looking at-
high enough to really get designated.
yeah. But my point is, they have 3 pretty quality corners. You could do a lot worse than Norman, Dunbar, and Moreau.
Yeah.
Is Moreau an outside guy? Yeah, probably. I mean, they'll have to sort that out.
But Dunbar's huge. Like physically, he's perfect to really be a good slot guy.
Yeah.
in my opinion.
They have to figure that out.
Yeah.
But the secondary will go on, and the problem on the defense never was the secondary this past year. The problem on defense was that the defensive front 7 couldn't stop
Right.
anybody. That was the problem.
Right.
No, that's fair. Which I hate to say. I mean, it's nice to have a good slot corner at times, a guy who can kind of double as a linebacker on passing downs. I mean, it's just kind of goes to your point. It's nice to have a versatile guy like that. I'm just saying.
It is. And listen, we're not. I don't think Steve or I are knocking
No.
Fuller. He was
Yeah.
a great piece to have, and ideally you would have kept him. But you're in a situation. I think you just need to embrace that you were never going to re-sign Kirk.
Yeah,
Like
I think so.
I think that's where the team was. Is that they realized there's no chance Kirk was going to be here. They had to make a plan, and
See-
they didn't want to make that plan Colt McCoy.
They could have
well, I
re-signed
understand
Kirk,
that.
but the amount of money they would have had to pay him to re-sign him would have been so astronomical. As I put in my article 2 weeks ago, there was a way to sign him, but there was no way the Redskins were ever going to do that. I think in hindsight, it was foolhardy to think that the Redskins were going to offer him a 5-year deal. They've never shown any indication that they wanted to do that. They don't believe in him. The reason Kendall Fuller is gone is that the Redskins mismanaged the Kirk Cousins situation. They didn't
Yeah,
believe in him.
absolutely.
They should have cut bait with him last year, and been done with it. So they did this to themselves. I do think, though, that the move that happened this week is the team ripping the Band-Aid off, making the best of a bad situation. At a bare minimum, we got a even if things go south, we got a legitimate starting quarterback. And they did it early enough in the offseason, so it's done, it's over, and they don't need to compete with anybody.
We can all be so thankful for that. I know we are thankful for that. Oh
they
my
can
God.
move on to other things in the draft. We don't have to worry about Lamar Jackson, Baker Mayfield, Josh Rosen. The team didn't want to have to go compete with anybody. They got it settled, and we can move on, and that is a worthwhile thing.
Your other option was probably somebody like
Ryan
Teddy
Fitzpatrick
Bridgewater in free agency if he would sign here.
And
you don't want to be in that situation. Yeah.
No.
Well, at least it's over, like you said.
Yeah.
Oh my God! I just listen to that sound. You hear that? That's a racers all over the DC area working on their mock drafts. Everything just changed in terms of what.
I don't even mean in terms of like fan health and apathy or lack thereof, or whatever we have. I'm talking about from a team perspective.
Oh,
they got
absolutely.
the quarterback
This was
and they're
the right
done,
thing to
and it's over, and they can move on to filling other holes, and once they realize, yes, Bruce should not have handled it the way they did, but at the very least he fixed the problem, and it's done.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're better off talking about it at a later date. The way this was handled could go down in history as some of the worst team management of all time. But I actually give him credit for this trade. I think the trade is, you like you said, we were in a bad situation. It's like if you found out you got bit by a snake and you just cut your leg off and put on a peg leg. That's what we did.
Well, listen, the thing is,
fair enough analogy.
I mean,
I dig it.
The Redskins weren't shopping at Dollar General.
No.
They paid full price. They were
They
shopping.
went to Five Below is where they went.
I mean, they were Neiman Marcus. They paid the Neiman Marcus price, not the Dollar General price. There's no doubt about it. Mm-hmm. But they did this to themselves, and they made the best of a bad situation. But I'd like to address one thing before we move. I don't know if you're moving us on, Sean, yet or not. But we have to address this insane desire and belief amongst the fan base out there that Kirk Cousins can be traded. Because we've gotten, over the past 24 hours, we've gotten
Are people saying that right now? You're
Yes.
saying?
Oh, if you go back onto our blog when we announced it, I would say there's no less than 200 comments about trying to trade Kirk Cousins.
We've gotten,
you guys are blowing my mind. I am so out of touch. This is the second time I've gotten public opinion very wrong from what I
and the other
thought.
thing, and we've gotten tons
of
of
the comment section.
We've
You're
gotten.
right. I need to.
We've gotten hundreds of Twitter, mentions over the past day because we put out a lot of material.
Yeah.
There is a very significant percentage of the people out there who have a fairly strong belief that the Redskins can and should trade him. Still to this day. And so let me explain this one more time for those of you who are dense and not that bright. Okay,
we love you so much.
Yeah, we do anyway, but you're dense and not too bright. Number one, in order to trade Kirk Cousins right now, they'd have to franchise tag him. And that would come with a cap hit, okay? And so we would have to tie up $34 million in a cap hit just to trade a guy. That's even assuming that there's a team who would want to trade him at $34 million. That's assuming the Redskins would want to take the risk of having Alex Smith on the roster and also being stuck with Kirk Cousins on the roster, which would be a disaster. It is from a salary cap perspective almost impossible. From a stupidity standpoint, it's up there with one of the most boneheaded things you would ever see a team do. There is no way in God's green earth that the Washington Redskins would risk being stuck with Kirk Cousins just to get one second-round draft pick out of somebody. It's insanity, it's ridiculous, and it needs to stop.
Let's also not forget that the entire reason to do it would be spite at this point, and it would be such a bad look for the team to try and do that. And, this team doesn't care about being spiteful. I know that. Like, we've seen enough evidence that they will do things to be vindictive.
Yeah.
But this would be beyond the pale because it would impact other teams in the league.
Because don't forget also that Cousins would never want to cooperate in this. Because it would hurt his value in free agency because you would be limiting him to one team. And so you'd have to have a team
find another team before you even do it, too, to try and make it happen.
Yeah, and then you're running the risk that it's going to fall through, and you're going to be stuck with a $34 million cap hit for a guy who's not going to start. It is the craziest thing ever, and you guys it was never going to happen in the first place, and it's almost impossible to happen now. And we've got to.
That's just people who don't
stop.
know the ins and outs of the contract, Steve. You're a freak of nature with that. Most people don't understand.
I don't even know the ins and outs stuff, and I understand why it's impossible. It's not hard.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think there's a lot of people out there that don't put much thought into that beyond, the game they're seeing in front of them, so they don't know.
I can only think of 2 players who are ever traded on a franchise tag, and there's probably 1 or 2 more. One was Jared Allen. He had an $8.8 million contract. That was what his franchise tag contract worked out to, $8.8 million. The other guy, I can
how much those things have.
Well, he's also a defensive end, But the other guy was Matt Castle, who was on a non-exclusive franchise tag. The Patriots traded him. It was a $14.4 million contract. We're talking about $20 million more than that.
Inside, that was them trading to their own team, basically, because wasn't that McDaniels at the time?
Yes, I believe it was. And so you're talking about $24 million more than that when the Redskins can't afford that much of a cap hit, as a gamble. When they already have their other quarterback, it's just I make a plea to everybody out there: give up the dream.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
they can get a compensatory pick, when he leaves. There's a big, for those of you who don't know, the NFL has a formula that they've never released. Nobody knows what it is, so it's hocus pocus, but the general gist of it is if the NFL feels you've lost more than you signed up in free agency, you'll get a compensatory pick. So if we lose Cousins, who was the starting quarterback, and we don't sign the equivalent thereof, then we're going to get a big compensatory pick, which could probably be a third-round pick. So in effect, if that happens, we're trading Alex Smith for Kendall Fuller, and I would do that every day of the week and twice on Sunday.
Sure.
There you go.
Unless you already had a quarterback.
Well, yeah.
And then you
would.
wouldn't
Being
do
how
it,
we had Colt McCoy and nobody, I would do that every day of the week.
Different.
Yeah.
Right. Now,
all right, well,
the one thing about the comp picks, Steve, do you know, does it have to be like position for position? Or like if we signed like, let's say a stud wide receiver, a stud running back, a stud guard, all in free agency, do they count that as the same as the third round pick? Or
my understanding is that it's a little bit more nebulous.
Okay.
But again, the NFL has never made their methodology public, so nobody really knows. I don't know why it's such a big secret, but it is. But if you look at the teams that have got compensatory picks, it appears to be sort of a nebulous thing. It's not just
it's so they can decide what to do.
Plinko balls. That's why.
Yeah.
They want to use their judgment on what happens. That's why.
There's probably some algorithm out there that they're plugging a bunch of numbers in, I'm sure. But
right.
So as long as we don't sign like a major starter, we should get a decent compensatory pick out of him.
But you kind of need to sign at least 1 or 2 major starters.
Well, they need a wide receiver,
Definitely a receiver. Yeah, and we need to, well, we've talked about it. But before we move on, because we need to do the poll, we need to talk Super Bowl. We have like 20 minutes left or so. I know, I'm so not interested in talking about the Patriots Super Bowl, guys. I got to admit to you, I have no interest
Patriots
at all.
Eagles kind of sucks, rocks.
Well, exactly. So before we do that, let's just solemnly salute on his way out our good friend Kirk, not Kurt, Kirk Cousins. Thanks for everything you did, and just take a second to think back about how bungled this whole thing has been from the second it started with him on this team through the Griffin era. How mishandled he has been, and I guess I just want to close with this.
Yeah.
I don't hate this trade, but what it says to me, looking back over this whole thing, is the Redskins have such a fear of commitment. You were afraid to commit to Kirk before. You shot yourself in the foot so much you blew the contract up. You were much more willing to sign an older person, at sort of the tail end of their career because you knew what you were getting than you were to take a risk and commit to someone else. So I don't hate this trade. But as the bow on this whole thing to me, it just speaks to it's classic Redskins. They cannot commit to anyone. And that, whatever happens, I wish Alex Smith well. It just feels very commitment phobic.
Right.
My last thought on this is I hope Vegas installs a prop bet on whether Bruce Allen is going to call Kirk Cousins Kurt one last time as like a giant middle finger in the sky on Kirk's way out of the
But really hit the T hard.
Yeah, Kurt as kind of like his big, screw you, Kurt, right, as you're leaving kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, I wonder if he'll say Alec instead of Alex. So.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, well, okay, so let's move on from that. We'll obviously be covering Alex Smith so much more as the offseason goes on. Welcome
Yes,
to the
sir.
team, but let's talk some Super Bowl stuff, and let's start with the poll because it was Super Bowl related, I believe, this week. Steve, what did we
Yes.
poll our beautiful listeners?
All right. Well, we polled our beautiful listeners. Since we were trying to get away from the Patriots and Eagles because we hate both those teams, let's direct it back towards Redskins Super Bowl stuff. So what we did this week was this. What do you think was the Redskins' greatest Super Bowl victory? Greatest being defined however you want to define it. Obviously we have the 83 Super Bowl, Redskins 27, Miami 17. 88 Super Bowl, Redskins 42, Denver 10. And 1992, which was Redskins 34, Buffalo 24. So the question as always is, what did we think the fans would have voted for, and what was your personal preference for the greatest Redskins Super Bowl?
Well, I'll go first,
Okay.
and I'll say for me personally, it's going to be the 91 because it's the first Super Bowl my parents actually let me stay up all night to watch instead of, hey, it's 9 o'clock, go to bed like 5-year-old Alex.
Nice.
Snot-nosed youngin' right there.
Yeah, right, exactly, at 34. But I think the fans were going to go with the Doug Williams Super Bowl. One, we just, put up so many points and just trounced them. But Doug having what most people say is one of the greatest games a quarterback's ever had in a Super Bowl.
Okay.
I think that one's going to be the fan vote.
Okay.
Nice.
And Sean, what do you think?
Oh my gosh, I am going to say, and this is coming from someone who really was not consciously thinking during any of these games, but I would say the most recent wins carry the most weight. So I'm going to go for the most recent. So I really have no idea what the fan base is going to say. So I'm going to defer to Alex and agree with what he said, but I really have no idea. My opinion would be 91.
Okay. Well, surprisingly enough, I would have thought the fans would have voted for 91 because it's known as one of the greatest teams of all time. But Alex is actually right. By a vote of 47%, the fans voted for the 1988 Doug Williams Redskins Denver Super Bowl as the greatest Super Bowl victory. Coming in second was 1992 with 33%, and I was very surprised. Only 20% voted for 1983. I thought it would have been a pretty significant amount that would have voted for it. I would have voted for 83 personally. If I had voted in
it's
poll.
a great game. I've gone back and rewatched them all, especially those that were, I was like 1 and, 4. So I went back and rewatched all of them, and it's really a great game, the 83 game.
For me, there's personal memories attached with that season.
Sure.
I was a season ticket. My family was a season ticket holder that year, and I got to go to the NFC Championship game and everything else.
Right.
So to me, that's a very special year, and so that would have made
Understandable.
it for me. Yeah, that's just my personal. And I thought more people would have voted for it because it was the first one. But I guess it's also an age thing, I get it.
Yeah.
We're going to read a couple. We didn't get a ton of comments. This poll was maybe, we had a home run a couple weeks ago, and, this was maybe a single. It was kind of a single that leaked out into the outfield,
Again, Maybe if we had known some other news was coming, we would have pulled something different.
We could have, if we had waited 12 hours in this poll, we could have put up a cool Alex Smith poll. Instead we had to make up a Super Bowl one because there was no news.
They really should have timed that better with our polls. It was a real dick move for them to do that.
Because we always like women who comment, because we don't get a lot of women who comment. I'm going to go with Michelle S., who is
Michelle.
at Ms. Spencer 7, and she writes that 88 does it for me. It was historic. Doug Williams being the first black quarterback to win a Super Bowl, first to make 4 TDs in one quarter, got an MVP. Timmy Smith rushing 204 rushing yards, 2 TDs. We were down 10-0 when my skins turned up and burned Elway and the Broncos down like Drogon. And she has a little
Nice.
GIF thing of the dragon from Game of Thrones burning up the Lannister army here. So that was
Nice.
Michelle out there. That was a very good comment.
And we love anything with a Game of Thrones gif. So
Yeah,
we do.
frankly, that was the other reason why I read it.
There you
Was
go.
that?
By the way, Steve, that was Alex pronouncing GIF correctly. You may use GIF as the pronunciation. That is correct.
What did I say?
You said GIF.
Oh, I did? Okay.
Yeah.
Hey,
That was
No,
the
I thought you said
non-controversial
GIF, which
way to
is
do it.
what some people also
you
say.
guys are lucky
Which is
I even know what
ridiculous.
it is, okay?
We probably taught him at some point.
You probably, yeah, I think you actually did. Okay, next one here, we're going to go with Bob Goldwyn, who is at Rudy Bucks, Bux. I've got to go with Super Bowl 17. I was 7 years old. It's one of my greatest memories as a Redskin fan. Here comes the diesel.
That's cool.
And we'll go with Juju_804, who has written in on these before, I believe. He votes for 92. He says 92 because that's one of the great seasons by any team in history, and yet is still criminally underrated. So that's some of the comments.
Thank you, folks, for commenting.
Yeah. Surprisingly, there were fewer comments about the 88 Super Bowl, even though it won the poll by a fairly healthy margin. So I don't know what that was about.
But I think that one comment you read probably summed it up pretty well.
Yeah.
The Doug Williams, not just the great game, but being the first African American to win a Super Bowl, probably weighs in for a lot of people.
Well, they figured the game. They figured the game spoke for itself. They didn't even need to explain.
It was a great game. I mean, you guys remember. I mean, the Redskins were down in the first quarter, and then the second quarter happened.
That was wild.
Come on,
drinking a beer and relaxing with the boys. It was great. I was 0 years old. All right. Let's talk about this year's Super Bowl, Steve.
Do we have to?
Come on, guys.
Oh my God,
Let's gin up the excitement. Come on. I hear the lethargicness in your voices. Come on, get it up. Let's be excited. It's the Super Bowl. It only comes once a year.
Such a great show up until right now.
I know. Right. You guys, most of you can turn it off now. We don't care. Let's talk about the Eagles and the Patriots.
F them both.
Let's do it.
That's there.
Amen.
Yeah, F them both. There you go.
Look, okay, we got to preview the Super Bowl a little bit. And so the question.
Talk about Tom Brady's fake injury. How about that? I like that angle that you were talking about.
Yeah, did I say that off the air or on?
Yeah, we said that pre-show.
What I said
Tom
pre-show.
Brady's injuries.
Yeah, I do not believe Tom Brady has a hand injury. Somebody's gonna have to show me a photograph of stitches in the man's hand and simultaneously prove the photo is doctored before I believe that he actually is injured, because the Patriots are dirty liars, and I will never believe him.
Right.
But let's talk about the game because we have to. To me, this game is a battle of Tom Brady versus the Philadelphia Eagles pass rush.
Right.
I think that is the game. If the Eagles really get to him, I think the Eagles sort of subscribe to my theory of how to beat Brady, hit him over and over and over and over and over again and get him off his game and get him frustrated. I think that's what the Eagles are probably going to try and do on defense. They're not going to out-offense them. I mean, they've got Nick Foles as their quarterback, so this is not going to be a shootout. At least, and if it is, the Eagles aren't going to win it. So it's a matter of limiting what the Patriots can do, and that can only come if you hit Tom Brady, in my opinion.
Yep.
I think you could make an argument that the Eagles have a 52-man roster that's better than the Patriots' 52-man roster.
Probably.
But the Patriots have Tom Brady as that 53rd man, and the Eagles have Nick Foles. So it's kind of an interesting contrast in teams. One thing I found out today watching ESPN that I didn't know was the whole fact that the Eagles head coach Peterson played for Bill Belichick back in Cleveland. I didn't realize that.
I didn't know that either. Wow.
Well, I think the important thing about this game also people need to remember is that Rob Gronkowski, as of this recording, which is Wednesday night, is still in the concussion protocol. And Amendola is still hurt also, and so those two guys are keys to the Patriots offense, and so the Gronkless and Danny-less Patriots are a somewhat different team than when those guys are out there. But I mean, Gronk is almost uncoverable when he's healthy. Yeah. And Amendola, Tom Brady has this weird ability to turn average slot receivers into great receivers somehow.
Yeah. Well, his best pass is the 4-yard dump on a slot route.
Yeah. So, if you had to pick one of those two and you're a Patriots fan, I'd want Gronk out there just because he's such a mismatch. I think, again, because it's the Patriots, I think they will grease whatever palm they have to get Gronk out there. I would be surprised if Gronk isn't out there one way or the other.
They will pull up old, IQ tests of his from the 5th grade to show that he's always been like this, and he's fine.
Because Gronk is not the sharpest knife in the drawer, let's be honest.
Yeah. No. His whole life is one long, drawn-out concussion.
It's fine.
Now, I forget. Wasn't there already some sort of controversy about Gronk and the concussion protocol? They violated something? I feel like I heard something about that I've already forgotten from last week. But wasn't there some shady business about that already?
Well, there's always shady business with the Patriots. I haven't heard
So,
that
yeah,
in
probably.
particular.
Okay. Don't quote me,
necessarily.
folks,
Shady
because I
business with the
could.
concussion stuff too these days. It seems.
Yeah,
Well, the thing is, for those of you who don't know how the concussion protocol works, to get cleared, you have to get evaluated by an independent doctor.
Yeah.
You know, and you have to go to multiple appointments, and it takes several days. And so the end game for Gronkowski is he needs to pass the independent evaluation. So my only half joking thing about greasing the palms would be to grease the palm of the doctor.
Right.
You know.
No, that's what
Yeah.
I knew you
Yeah.
meant that. I wouldn't be surprised at all.
No.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're totally right that it's going to come down to how well you can stop the Patriots' offense and hit Tom Brady. Now, what do you think the likelihood is that they're going to be able to do that to an effective level to allow Foles to stay in this game?
I think it's more likely than not that the Patriots will figure it out and pull it out.
That's unfortunately, Steve. I think you're probably right about that, and we're gearing up for another Patriots victory. Which, honestly, considering some of the things we said last week about the crappy side of Philadelphia losing, wouldn't be the worst thing. But
I would revel in the misery of the people of Philadelphia. If they're miserable, I'm happy. You know, and so I
nice.
root for a flame out by the Eagles. I can't, under any circumstances, root for the Eagles. I can't root for the people of Philadelphia to be happy, with the exception of Alex's family. Hope they're happy, but all the rest of those guys can wallow in their misery for all I care. So
Agreed. May a bubble of happiness stay around Alex's kin and no one else
exactly.
from here on out.
And whoever the guys that's maintaining the Liberty Bell, you know, that's a tough job. So him too, but everybody else,
he can be happy.
Misery. Yeah.
All right, fair enough.
And the guy. Let me also say the guys at Jim's Cheesesteaks, because they make a good cheesesteak.
No, screw them. There's a lot of cheesesteak
Yeah.
places. We don't need them to be happy.
We can't accept everybody, Alex. These are small bubbles of
right.
happiness only. Small bubbles.
All right.
Well, okay, so we don't really need to
Predictions?
beat this over the head. Do you want to do predictions for the Super Bowl and put the kibosh on this thing?
I think I
Sure.
just said my prediction. I think the
you do
Patriots are going
score?
to pull it out. And
gotta do
score.
score,
No,
man.
let's do.
Come on.
I think it's going to
You know
be.
how we do this.
I'm going to
your
go with
first time doing it.
31-20 Patriots.
31-20 Patriots.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm gonna say lower scoring, 23-14 Patriots.
Nice. I'm going to say 27-20 Patriots. Yeah, 27-20. I'm going to stick with that. I feel like it's going to come down to basically the final play. Tom Brady's going to get that final game-winning drive.
He's going to do that again, huh?
It's not like you can't say
what he
there's not a
does.
precedent for it, Steve.
that's
Yeah,
true.
I mean, we see it every freaking year. All right, well, that was that then. We'll put the kibosh on this episode for tonight, but we will be back, obviously, with you guys next week. Keep checking back on thehogsty.com for all the awesome written content. We're doing it pretty much every day now, so if you don't come to the Hogsty one day, you're missing stuff, so don't let that happen. And we'll see you guys next time. So long.